what it seems to be. Hey, I think we can use some other kind of entertainment.
John Derek, the iconic actor featured in Cecil B. DeMille's to Exodus, dabbled in, well, should we say, a bit of an adult player with the movie Love You. Oh, and of course, his wife, Bo Derek, was there acting as producer, and of course she was on the set every day, as Annette Haven, one of the actors who appears in the movie, said. And talking about this film, now I've talked about movies of the adult genre before, but what makes it interesting on YouTube, I'm noticing that many well-ranked shows that also do things like review adult material will be very careful. One of these programs actually refers to them as genre materials. What is genre? A Western is genre, science fiction is genre. And to talk about going into genre like it's something daring, well, you could say adult videos, but apparently that's going to disrupt your algorithm with YouTube. Why, I don't know. You would think that with giving corporations free run of everything that might include more freedom. Hardly. You know, here we are. You have a number of companies talking about the virtues of free speech, but withholding monetization if you decide to go into different subject matters, forcing you to have to change your words to it. It makes me wonder sometimes if capitalism and free speech are necessarily equal with each other, but that's beside the point. So getting on to Love You, this is a movie that both John and Bo Derek worked on, and this was not his first erotica movie. He did another one called Fantasies, again with Bo Derek, that I thought was very well done, just like I do of Love You. But then once Bo Derek hit her stride in the movie 10 and they started producing bigger budget versions of their erotica, that's where it starts to get a little dumb. And, Tarzan, I like Richard Harris, but I can barely sit through the entire Tarzan, if I ever find myself watching it. And then, of course, there's Bolero, which kind of has some pretty silly moments there, which I haven't really gone back to. It's not a movie that draws me to watch it 2 times any more than the next movie, Ghost. Don't do it. But this movie, Love You, does cause me to come back and watch it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and because I think it is a slice of Americana, or at least the Americana that existed in the early 70s, when middle America was trying to find itself, so to speak. In fact, I think that you can find in society and in movies the same thing you see as an individual when they become aware of different products. Like in the 70s, America was undergoing a lot of sex education at the movies and probably were never aware of that. But in this movie, what you have are 2 couples who are, I don't know what they do for a living, but they must be pretty well off to be able to afford it. That can take them to one of the California islands, which tends to resemble Hawaii because that's where it was filmed, Hawaii. And they want to swap, which was, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Swinging was just getting into vogue in the early 70s. But it seems that John Derek in this movie wants to explore all the attitudes Americana had about sexually open relationships, and all of his characters are going to represent these modern, what's become modern archetypes. And when they arrive at the island, they first talk about it ad nauseum. And Annette Haven, of course, says that she might be open to it, and she's like the most timid of them all, her character is. But ultimately, you find that it's this timid character that's really pushing the other 3 to go with their limits. When Annette Haven begins to go at it with a man who is not her husband who brought her out here for this purpose, it has his back turned and is like kind of just looking back and looking like he just can't take it. And then same thing happens when the wife of the other husband has sex with Annette Haven's husband. He's looking at it like, this is it. We just can't take it anymore. And so they start talking to their wives, or at least Annette Haven's husband begins talking to her and saying, hey, if you want to go, we can go. And it's like, no, I don't want to go. So they keep going, they keep pushing it until eventually all that distrust eventually goes away. And then they have more conversations about why aren't you open about your fantasies, and of course it's because people will judge you and all, and of course in the 70s people were trying to come out, were trying to explore their natures. And one of them admits that, Annette Haven admits that, that she kept her fantasies quiet because she didn't want to upset the apple cart, which kind of surprises Eric Edwards' character. Eventually, toward the end of it, they began to have a little bit more considerate orgy, if I could call it that, where everybody's getting turned on, all the jealousy is dissipated, but they first had to go through these steps. They had to confront their jealousies. They had to confront all their negativity before eventually everything was able to end positively. And the way this movie is shot, I really enjoyed. When it first came out, or I should say when I first saw it, because it's been out since something like 76 or 77, but I first saw it sometimes in the early to mid 80s. And at the time I was going to the University of South Florida, where I was in their film department, and some of the instructors there, in fact some of the artists there were actually noted artists who came down to Florida for their vacations. People like Roy Lichtenstein and Will Hindle, Charles Lyman, and a number of others. And their movies were very meditative, not a lot of emphasis on plot, which in a way is pretty perfect for erotica. And at the very beginning of this movie and the end of this movie, it does begin in Annette Haven's fantasy or dream, where she's running through the desert and another man played by Paul Thomas is running through the desert searching for her, and eventually they wind up doing it in the desert, but it's very atmospheric. At the end of it, it's like the fantasy, because you do have some of the characters from the dreams appear in the movie along with the real life couples, and suddenly dream and reality meet, and then the movie just kind of ends like an underground movie from the 70s. And I've really, really enjoyed this movie. Sometimes I think I'm spending too much time watching movies online, and I certainly don't want the movies in the theater to get diminished, but I gotta tell you, when I go to movie theaters, and especially, unfortunately these days, if it's a movie I'm looking forward to, the movie usually turns out being not that great. The latest example would be The Toxic Avenger. Now, I was never on my own a big fan of Toxic Avenger or some of Trauma movies. That is until I moved to Hollywood and actually met people. Actually, I met Lloyd Kaufman. They're having a premiere of one of the Toxic Avenger movies called Citizen Toxie, and they had this bar crawl where we started at one place and just went through all the bars on the Sunset Strip until we arrived at the theater, where there was carnival acts and all these things going on outside the theater, and then we all came in to watch Citizen Toxie. And it was fun, it was colorful, it was a bright movie, and when I went to see this new Toxie, it was grim and green. That's the best I could do. And of course, I do like Peter Dinklage from the Game of Thrones and one of the Avengers movies, and I find him a very entertaining person to watch and listen to. So already there's something about the movie that I like. And after a while I stopped liking it that much, and the main reason was because of the darkness, the grim green haze that the movie had. In fact, it seems that a lot of movies these days are being shot at, Oho lighting, because I guess that indicates deep. But in any event, the man who's about to become the new Toxic Avenger, Winston Groose, is raising a son whose mother had died, and of course that mother was his girlfriend. The son doesn't like it that they never got married, so there's a lot of friction there between father and son. And then when he goes to the doctor, he finds out that he has a brain tumor and he's going to be dead within the year. He finds out that his work insurance may cover a special treatment that will help him get healthy again. But he doesn't qualify, so he goes to the owner, the boss of the company he works for, and the guy's pretty rude and basically tells him he's not going to pay for him. So now he basically has a death sentence on his head. So while he's in the laboratory cleaning up, That's when he finds that poisonous ooze that causes his mop basically to achieve superhuman powers, where if he runs the mop across someone's face, their face will fall off. But he's being chased by some of the miscreants of the boss, and they throw him in the tank, and he comes out as the Toxic Avenger. There's a lot of CGI, unlike the original Lloyd Kaufman Toxic Avengers, where what you saw on the screen was what you were getting. But CGI is something that we tend to expect these days. But it was also used to render some pretty gross scenes that really just don't appeal to me at all. I'm not very big on scatological humor, if that tells you anything. Of course, this is called the unrated version. Outside of that little personal disgust, by the time the movie was over, I was actually kind of glad that it was over. I don't know if I'm actually going to go see it again, but just a few reflections, though, about this Toxic Avenger versus, if we could call it that, the other Toxic Avengers. Well, not really versus. Let's look at some of the things that they did have in common besides the main character. One thing that Lloyd Kaufman is big on, and he wrote about this in his books, he's been very open about this, is one of his formulas is he'll take an unsexy subject and try to make it sexy. And he did this a lot in the 80s, where you have the environment. You got the environment being poisoned. So he comes out with the Toxic Avenger. Yeah, it's kind of like a tongue-in-the-cheek thing, but he's still confronting environmental issues. He was worried about the way the meatpacking industry is basically poisoning the country with food chemicals and additives and things like that. So he made Poultrygeist, where even though it's a comedy, in the back, you can see, in the background, you can see the criticism that Lloyd Kaufman and the trauma folks have about the poisoning of our country by, lowering our food and drug standards, lowering our safety standards. So you can see that. But what he does is he knows that the people who need to hear that message aren't going to be sitting down watching a documentary. So he knows that they're going to see sleazy drive-in epics. So that's where sometimes all these, the particular agenda, whether it's an environmental agenda or whether it's, let's say, a movie about greed or what have you. And I think this movie has it. I think this movie's heart is in the right place. It's taking an unsexy subject, the problems with our environment, and it's making it even more unsexy.
Thank you for watching Psycho Cinema Therapy Theater. And if you want to see more reviews like this, drop me an idea in the comments, and also don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be notified whenever we have new movies and new reviews and new topics for your consumption. Thanks for watching.